Jealousy and overcoming the excess baggage that we can carry around with us about this very topic. I'm Jackie Almer. Welcome to the Pilot Wife Podcast. Grab the checklist over at pilotwifechecklist.com. Let's talk about some ways to celebrate instead of compare ourselves to others, which will help combat those feelings of jealousy that can happen when we get into that habit of comparing ourselves to others. Here's the thing with jealousy. Jealousy is just a signal that's trying to tell you something. So it really starts with who and what are you jealous of? Do you know? Is it something or somebody tangible that you can actually put a thought to, a name to, a feeling to, a person to? Do you know this person or just of this person? And where and what do you know them from? Now, I know as a pilot wife, we can make up all kinds of stories because we're in that situation where our partner is out on the road. They're gone for extended periods of time from us. They have a hotel room. They can often be surrounded by beautiful women. We make up all these stories in our mind about the perfection of somebody else. But it's so important to really begin to explore what it is that your jealousy is trying to tell you. Now, as I said, jealousy is simply a signal trying to get your attention. And I want to encourage you to turn toward it instead of trying to push it away, instead of letting those feelings of anxiety and fear and dread and paranoia and unworthiness and all those things that can overcome us. Don't allow those to take over in your body. Just pause. Feel that feeling of jealousy and allow yourself to experience all of the thoughts that go along with that. Is it a person? Is it a situation? Is it an old story from the past that you're continuing to conjure up and projecting into your current situation and your future? It's so important to evaluate this because this is going to be your first step in overcoming it. And let's face it, that is your number one goal, is to overcome these feelings of jealousy because they don't serve anyone. They certainly don't serve you. They don't serve your pilot, your spouse, your partner, your family. They don't serve your colleagues. They don't serve anything because they have a tendency to get in the way of how we show up in every other area of our life. So a lot of times it starts with our own feelings and thoughts about ourselves. When you feel that feeling of jealousy and you can go through the thought and the emotion and actually experience if we're feeling it toward another person, after you go through that, then I want you to stop and turn inward again and ask yourself, what are my thoughts and feelings right now about myself? And what area of my life is it that brings up these feelings of lack, unworthiness, not enoughness, inadequacy? You named the word. I don't want to put feelings and emotions into your head, but these are some of the ones that I hear most frequently from my clients. One other thing that I really want to encourage you to think about is how often when you begin to feel that emotion of jealousy, if you stop and pause and you reflect on it, how often is it something that's been triggered from a past experience? It's so interesting that however young we begin to experience things, we begin to build belief systems around those things that we experience. So if we had a partner in the past who cheated on us or who constantly flirted with other women or in some way acted in a way that created that feeling of inadequacy within us. And I like to say that because nobody else makes you feel a certain way. They don't make you feel a certain way. We feel emotion all on our own, right? We could observe somebody flirting and not allow that to be a story or make up something about ourselves. So I really like to encourage you to stop and reflect on whatever you're experiencing. If it's a sense of jealousy around someone the pilot flew with, someone they met, someone that they're just talking to, whatever, get really clear on what that feeling is of jealousy that comes up for you, what it is about you that you're thinking about yourself, and then stop and reflect back and see if you can find a time in your life that you can relate that trigger to. That can be a big step. I had a client I worked with recently who was dating a pilot, and every time he would leave on a trip, she would go into huge anxiety over just him being gone, her being alone. Did he text her back fast enough? Did she have communication with him? And when I really worked her through this process, I said to her, has he given you any reason, any tangible reason? Has he given you a reason to feel um, jealous or to doubt his sincerity or to um, make you doubt his faithfulness or fidelity or any of that kind of thing? And when she stopped and thought about it, she said, no, I mean, he's been fine. And I said, all right, let's go back to your previous relationship, the relationship you had right before this one. And we'll keep going back step by step through all the relationships that you've had and see if we can zero in on, was there a situation that occurred where you began to feel those feelings of jealousy, either through an action that your partner at the time was creating? They were actively flirting, they were cheaters, whatever it was. And then we're going to take those stories and we're going to look at those and we're going to evaluate those and see where we might be bringing that story from the past, bringing it into our current situation and projecting everything that or other previous partners did to us. And we're now projecting it on this current relationship. And I'm sure you can see where that's a recipe for disaster, because when we stop and think about that and we stop and think about our own partner, we don't want them taking every past experience they've had in another relationship and projecting that into our personality or what their expectation is of how our relationship might turn out. So be very aware of where limiting beliefs, old situations, old stories, old things that actually did happen, but are not currently happening right now, that we are allowing ourselves to experience over and over and over again. Because I think you'd agree with me, it's not fair to ask your partner to pay the price for what another did, just like we don't want to experience that either. Ladies, sometimes we get jealous of other women, don't we? We have that sense of comparanoia. We look at other women and we think, oh my gosh, they're prettier. They have a better body. They're more accomplished. They're funnier. They're so much more put together. They don't have kids running around crazy and the house isn't a mess and blah, 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 blah. All these stories that we can make up and tell ourselves. Very often, again, this is simply made up. We make up that other pilots, female pilots, flight attendants, women on layovers, the hotel rooms that they have. Our mind can literally go nuts if we allow it to. And why is that? What are your thoughts and your feelings? What exactly are you jealous of? I don't mean to be redundant. I keep repeating these because I really want to impress upon you and stress to you that you can learn a lot by continuing to think these thoughts, feel these feelings, and evaluate them. Now, I don't want to keep you spinning with these thoughts and emotions. More than anything, what I want you to do is become aware of them instead of pushing them away, acknowledge them, feel them, and then ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How can I encourage and support myself and calm myself down? Now, I know for me, one of my big stories that I have lived with and made up around myself forever was that feeling of unworthiness, inadequacy, and comparanoia. And most of that really stemmed from the fact that I didn't finish and get my college degree. And because of that, for the longest time, I had such a hard time hearing my husband compliment or even comment on another woman's accomplishments. Maybe it was someone he flew with. Maybe it was someone, he's a drummer in a band. And so he's had a variety of band members come through. And maybe it was something that he told me about their wife. It didn't matter what. Most of the time, I never even met the person, didn't have anything to go on other than that the feeling that it conjured up within me when he would compliment or comment on something about them. It was horrifying. I hated it. I hated it because it made me not show up as my best self. It often caused me to get jealous and then maybe a little snippy and never, ever even reveal to him what it was. I never said, oh my gosh, I don't want you talking about other women or anything like that. But it was interesting to me once I really became aware of those feelings and emotions around new women that would come through, typically wives of friends of his, colleagues of his, and sometimes women who he flew with, etc. I just really had a hard time with it. And more than anything, I'll be honest, I would have a hard time with it if I knew that they were attractive. Okay. And most of them were really attractive. And so again, I would fall into that comparanoia. Well, they have a college degree, they have this big highfalutin job, and they're super attractive. They have a great body. They work out every day at the gym, whatever it is. I think you probably know what I mean. And so I had to really take some time to explore my own feelings of unworthiness to begin to unpack it. And I would find myself, again, avoiding it, turning away from the conversation. If he would start to talk about somebody, just casually sharing conversation with me, I would feel that jealousy come up within me. And then I would feel indifferent and I would change the subject. I would get short. I would be uninterested without ever addressing what was really going on in my mind. And when I learned to just lean into it, and just ask him a few questions about this person or, whatever it was the conversation typically took a turn and moved on very quickly. He wasn't talking about that person to try and make me jealous or fearful of anything. He wasn't nitpicking on my own feelings of inadequacy or any of that. What I found was when I could lean into the conversation, make it light, make it pleasant, not make that mean anything about me that was somehow wrong, then we would pick right back up as a couple. And I was able to remind myself, guess what? He's with me. He chose me, and he chose me for a reason. Now, I wanted to show you this little tool that I came up with a few years back, and it's called my little book of accomplishments. If you're watching this on video, you can see my small little book. And if you're not, you can create this out of anything that you want, a small little notebook or something like that. But this was a little keychain that actually came as part of a journal set that I purchased. And when I first got it, I thought, what am I going to do with this little tiny notebook? And I didn't throw it away. I tossed it in a drawer. And for some reason, at one point, this came to me. I was working with a client and I was thinking about my own situation, my own times when I have felt paranoia, jealousy, less than inadequate. And what I did was I sat one day and I spent an hour or more literally writing down everything positive from as far back as my memory takes me, which is to about age 3, when I woke up from a nap and I remember feeling like all was right with the world. For whatever reason, I've never forgotten that memory. I went all the way back and I started making a list of everything positive that I had ever experienced. Something nice a teacher said of me. My second grade teacher who gave me a solo in the Christmas play and then hugged me and told me what an amazing job that I did. My health teacher in high school who told me I was a great resource for my friends because I had a counselor-like mentality, which of course I went into coaching. So here we are today. Promotions that I got, compliments, awards that I received in building a business, just all the different things, everything, no matter how big, no matter how small, whatever it was, I began to make a list of every accomplishment or compliment that I received. And I just started writing them down in this book. I just would write one down on a page. And then what I started using this sits on my desk, and every time I would find myself falling into that paranoia again, something would happen to upset my apple cart and I would feel inadequate. I just go and I get this book and I remind myself, here we go. I was hired as a travel agent. That's what launched my travel industry career. I was hired by Purgatory, the ski resort. I was hired by Air Midwest, my first airline. I moved to Albuquerque and went into part-time sales and marketing. Then I got transferred to Nashville when American Airlines opened the Nashville hub and I got into a sales position. Now these are just career, but all the different things. One of them that's so funny in here is I remember once here it is. I remember wearing I was in my early 20s, kind of tight-fitting off-white sweatery dress with this pair of off-white killer boots. And I walked into our office in Nashville. My husband was chief pilot in the Nashville domicile for American Eagle back in that day. We had recently started dating, and he made the most amazing compliments to me about how I looked. And I remember that making me feel like $1,000,000. And literally, I didn't think about that right away, but when I was making my list of feel good moments, right? Anything anybody had said to me or about me, that one popped into my brain at some point and I wrote it in there. So I really want to encourage you to take some time to create your own book of accomplishments. And then when you start feeling those feelings of inadequacy, unworthiness, I'm not as good, I'm jealous, I have comparanoia, whatever it is, you can just go back and reflect on that book and add to it any time that you want. So another thing that you can do is ask yourself, what's missing from my life right now? Is there something else I aspire to be that's leading me to feel jealous? Do I want to travel more? Do I want to change jobs? Do I want to complete my college education? Do I want to build a new way of being? Okay. Think about those things and then begin to make a plan for yourself to improve upon yourself if that makes you feel better. Now, here's what I want to caution you on. When you're feeling jealousy toward another person, don't allow that to be an opportunity for you to beat up on yourself or think that you have to do something else. You have to change jobs or do this or do that in order to be enough. It's not about that, but it's just simply an opportunity to look and say, how can I, if I desire to, improve upon myself? It's so easy, especially with social media, to compare our B-roll to somebody else's A-roll. I think you know what I mean. Most people put their best foot, their best face, and their best made-up BS out on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok and all the different places so that we see the best in them. We don't get to see the behind the scenes that, believe it or not, every single one of us experience. So don't drown in that sense of jealousy. Don't drown in that sense of comparanoia and unworthiness. Let's just take the time to unpack it and see where it leads. As I mentioned, what more do you want in your life? Do you want better vacations to where you feel like you're creating those experiences, those memories, those opportunities with your pilot so that they want to come home and they always remember you? And here's a clue. They already do. We're just making up in our mind our own shortcomings. Do you want to remodel your home? Start making a list of those things that you want to begin to work toward so that if you see those other things in somebody else's social media feed, they're on great vacations, they've got a new home, they just bought a boat, a new car, whatever, begin to make your own wish list of things you want to accomplish. And instead of feeling jealous or envy when you see that in another, begin to look at that list and think for yourself, what are the steps that I can begin taking to create that? Whether it's trips, whatever it is, the first step on something like that is to pick a date, maybe way out in the future, get it on the calendar and start exploring how you're going to make that happen. And then as part of that jealousy process, what can you see below the surface that's going on with you? That's where it's so important that we realize it's something that we're self-projecting about ourselves that most often makes us feel those feelings of unworthiness. You are amazing just the way you are. We can all improve and become better, certainly, right? Who can't? Every single person can. But that doesn't mean that you're not just as worthy or good enough the way you are right now. And if you want some help, I would love to have a conversation with you about improving and creating that $1,000,000 self-image. And here's how to do that coming up. Do you ever find yourself on the struggle bus with relationships, career, or life in general? I'm a mindset and peak performance coach helping women rediscover their own sense of identity and purpose, avoid turbulence, and put their own oxygen mask on first. Together, we work to get you out of autopilot and create a better flight plan for life and relationship success. As a pilot wife for over 30 years, I've navigated thousands of miles and moments in aviation, mommyhood, business, and life in general. I would love to offer you a free call to see if I might be able to help you too. You can go to coach.pilotwifepodcast.com. And if you have a topic suggestion or a story to share on the show, go to ask.pilotwivepodcast.com. And of course, you'll find all of this at resources.pilotwivepodcast.com. Please take a moment to review and rate the show on whatever your favorite podcast app is. This helps the show get found by others who need what we have here. I'll see you on the journey, and thanks for listening.